And welcome, everybody, to the 150th episode of the Fact Is Podcast. We're your hosts, Nate Moses.
And I'm Ryan Mays. Hey, the camera angle is good.
And I'm Stu Mowbray.
Welcome, everybody. Appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Of course, we had our special episode yesterday with Anna. Want to thank her again, being able to get out here, talk about America's health. Again, her and her profession. It was nice to have an expert opinion on the episode. So, it was a great episode. Had a great time. If you all want to check it out, please make sure you go back on our socials. We have it on Facebook and YouTube as to where you can mainly find it. Previously done episodes, so please make sure you all check that out. Gentlemen,
Dave,
I was going to ask how your week's been, but we already covered that yesterday.
I've got a new answer today.
How has your one day been?
So I'm a little offended, Dave.
Yeah.
I'm a little offended.
Explain.
Because you said it's nice to have an expert opinion on. Bro, I sit across from you every single week, and I am an expert. I don't know what in, but I'm an expert.
At least, well, the discussion of mental fortitude, at least, right?
Oh, I am an expert at that.
There you go.
But I would say I'm an expert.
Yeah, there you go. So.
No, I'm not. How you doing, Stu?
Today was good. It was a good day.
Good day. Grinding hard, getting things done.
Yes, sir.
Loving it. All right, well, let's talk real quick before we actually jump into this. I know there were two topics we kind of wanted to discuss a little bit before we went live. So be on the lookout for Joe Biden. Currently, they are trying to put out impeachment. What's the word I'm looking for? Inquiry, yes. So they are currently
They've been doing the impeachment.
They have.
Inquiry.
There's been a little more update there. It looks like it's getting a little more serious. That's why we're just kind of briefly touching on it, because we don't actually know what's going to happen. So it's one of those things where we would love to be able to update you on it and be able to actually track it and figure that out. But as of right now, we don't truly know what's going to happen with it.
But see, here's the thing about Joe Biden, right? Politician, career politician.
Yep.
Been in politics for 40 plus years. And we're sitting around right now asking, is this man corrupt? There's a bear shit in the woods.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, when you're looking at these career politicians, it's hard not to just kind of come out right there and just be like, look,
has he really been ethical?
Yeah.
For the last 40 years?
The only ethical congressional representative that I can think of right off the top of my head is Tulsi Gabbard.
Swalwell.
But she's not anymore.
She's not anymore because of how ethical she wants to be. She stepped down after serving, I believe, a total of 8 years for the people of Hawaii.
Lauren Boebert.
You got me.
Marjorie Taylor Greene. Chip Roy. Kamala Harris. Why are you like, but then when I say a Democrat, you're like, You're showing some bias here, Nate.
I'm biased. What can I say? I hate them all.
You know, I think Thomas Massey is pretty consistent on how he votes.
Thomas Massey?
Yeah.
What about Hawley? Josh Hawley out of Missouri?
I don't know, but I will tell you, Chio on TikTok just brought up the best name. The most ethical one is Nancy Pelosi.
I don't know.
So
I'm out on that one.
There's that. Love it. Thank you for thank you for the comments there.
Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, so y'all get the gist. Obviously, none of these career politicians are somebody we see as the most ethical individuals in the world, and mostly all working for the establishment. So it's something that we definitely can discuss and talk about throughout. And of course, that's where we're lying with that. So the impeachment, there's an inquiry. We're waiting on it. Once we get more information, we'll let you know.
Yeah, we obviously know most of them are corrupt.
Right. There are good ones out there. You just got to look.
Yeah, the vast majority are corrupt. It's just, can we, investigate them and actually find evidence that will stick and hold them accountable in court.
Right. And I 100% agree with that. So
here's the thing, though. If we know they're all corrupt, right? We assume that they're all corrupt.
Yeah, we'll say we assume.
If it was so easy to point out, then why hasn't it been done? Is it because they're all in it together? Or is it that they hide their tracks so well that it's, or is it that they're hiding it in plain sight? So everybody's like, ha, Yeah, it's a big joke.
That's almost kind of where I'm at with it. Like, desensitization is a huge thing. If they're sitting there and, desensitizing it by putting it out in plain sight.
Biden straight up came out and admitted to a quid pro quo with Ukraine. Like, he's like, if you don't fire this guy, I'm holding $1 billion.
Yeah.
I think so, too, that they're good at finding the loopholes. Where
they all are lawyers.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. They're good at finding the loopholes where they do things that are pretty corrupt, but they're still legal in a sense.
Right.
They play in the gray.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then I know there was one other thing that we wanted to touch up on really quick.
The Epstein story. So
how he didn't kill himself?
Well, there's that. Going into 2024, I believe they are bringing, was it more than 150 people?
175.
175 up to, I apologize, I didn't look into it that much.
In court.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Isn't it his flight logs? Or is it just names?
It says Jeffrey Epstein's associates to be revealed in court documents in 2024.
So it could be associates, could be people on the flight log, could be people he was doing business with. It could be a number of things. So we'll find out.
That could be incredibly damning.
And it says more. It says more than 175.
More than 175. So we don't actually know the number.
Let's get that big 220.
That's what I'm saying.
But here's the thing. Anybody who's associated with him at this point,
right?
Like, that's incredibly damning. Like, that could be just it could cut your career off at the knees.
Could.
Because, I guess he was never convicted of, no, he was convicted of sex trafficking not traffic, but he just, something with a minor in Florida.
Yeah, that was the one where he got a slap on the wrist from
and Marco Rubio is the one who got him off. Yeah. So
yeah,
don't vote for that guy.
So Epstein got a very small jail sentence, prison sentence, I think, for like not even a year,
like 8 months.
I think it was something like that. And I
could be completely wrong on this.
And there was a federal individual. His mind always just goes. I just can never remember his name. But he basically gave him a sweetheart deal, and
Rubio.
then I don't think it was Rubio.
Yeah, Ricky Rubio gave him a sweetheart deal.
We'll look into that later.
Not Ricky Rubio. Oh my gosh, that's the basketball player. Marco Rubio.
Rubio.
Okay. And
Ricky
then
Rubio. Hey.
And then obviously he ended up getting to the point where he was getting convicted in jail, and then that's where he killed himself.
That when he broke his own neck?
Yeah. And then he was awaiting his trial for
all the lights.
All that. So
came back on.
Fun times there. But anyways, so those are the two big stories that we wanted to kind of throw out there at everybody. Make sure you're staying on top of. Honorable mentions. We'll come back to it, and of course we'll keep up to date with it. So just wanted to throw that out there.
One more thing before we move on.
I would love to hear it.
Have y'all seen that RFK Jr. has admitted to being on Epstein's plane?
I have.
I did see that.
Which he claims it was back in like 93 before Epstein went to prison or anything was found out about him.
Right.
So it says more than 175 names will come out that were associated with Epstein. So how can we, take into account that these weren't names that have flown with Epstein before, like RFK is saying he did?
You'll have to do a lot of research and be able to figure out the timeline. And I do want to just real quick touch back up. So the Justice Department report has found that former Labor Secretary Alex Acosta was the one who exercised the poor judgment in handling the investigation into Epstein when he was a top federal prosecutor in Florida. So that's who it was. Yeah. So yeah, because he was the one who handed him that plea deal that put him in there for like 8 months or whatever. Yeah. So, but I mean, honestly, you'll just have to do really deep research, and hopefully, when they're bringing these people, I mean, clearly, when they bring them to court, they're gonna have very descriptive times as to when they flew with Epstein, when they met with him, where they met him, what they were doing, what they were discussing. Hopefully.
Well, here's the thing. Is everybody who came into contact with Epstein guilty by association?
Right. And that's what I'm saying. I think both sides play that, it's if someone you like was associated with them, it's, he was just at a party with them. And then if, the other side, he was on his plane, he's guilty. Yep. I think both sides kind of play that thing.
Yep, I 100% agree. So things we'll keep on our radar and things we'll discuss, but let's go over the topics that we're going to be talking about tonight. So Japan's Nippon Steel to acquire U.S. Steel for $14.9 billion. So another thing that'll be going to another country. U.S. homelessness has gone up 12% to highest reported level as rents soar and coronavirus pandemic aid lapses. It's crazy to me that it's just now lapsing, though, in some places. And then Tennessee is suing BlackRock in first of its kind consumer protection suit over ESG considerations. So some good stuff that we'll be able to talk about. Good things coming tonight, and we'll jump straight in with, I believe, Japan. Let's talk about Japan. So Japan's Nippon Steel has secured a $14.9 billion deal to buy U.S. Steel for $55 a share at 142% premium to previous bid of $35 a share by Cleveland-Cliffs. The acquisition is expected to benefit from spending and tax incentives in President Joe Biden's infrastructure bill. The deal was initiated 4 months ago after Cleveland-Cliffs' pursuit of U.S. Steel. Nippon and ArcelorMittal also pursued U.S. Steel, with Nippon and Mittal owning a plant in Alabama that produces steel sheet products. The acquisition will help Nippon move towards 100 million metric tons of global crude steel capacity and significantly expand its production in the United States, where steel prices are expected to rise as automakers ramp up production following recent deals with labor unions to end strikes. Nippon did not provide any projection on the value of the synergies that will arise from the deal, but said that synergies will come from pooling advanced production technology and know-how in product development, operations, energy savings, and recycling. The acquisition is expected to result in Cliffs failing to renew a contract to provide slabs to ArcelorMittal and Nippon's Alabama plant that expires in 2025. U.S. Steel is set to sell its stake in the company to Nippon, which has been a major player in the U.S. steel industry for over 40 years. The company is expected to close the transaction in the second or third quarter of 2024, subject to regulatory approvals. The United Steelworkers Union, which had endorsed heavily unionized Cliffs as the acquirer, is opposed to the sale due to the lack of faith of labor agreements being upheld. The company has a good history of working with unions and sees no regulatory or antitrust issues with the deal. The deal is expected to attract little antitrust scrutiny due to the limited overlap between the two companies. If the deal is rejected, Nippon will owe U.S. Steel a $565 million breakup fee. Some U.S. lawmakers, including Republican Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio and Democratic Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, have expressed hostility towards the deal. U.S. Steel, founded in 1901 by major U.S. magnates, is an attractive takeover target for rivals looking to add steelmaker in the automobile industry. So, this is it's interesting to see who was upset at this deal. Honestly, John Fetterman is not somebody I expected because he ran as a progressive. And then ultimately now he's claiming that he's not progressive.
Yeah, but isn't U.S. Steel based out of Pittsburgh?
Is it?
Pretty sure.
Yeah, it's his state.
Is it? Okay. So if it's coming out of his state, I mean, I could see the frustration in wanting to keep it solely to an American-owned company, which is interesting, though, because, again, typically, and especially if you're getting it at a 142% premium to the previous bid, you know, most people would be pretty happy with that deal. But I'm glad to see that somebody is actually stepping up and frustrated that, again, it's getting transferred out of the United, or not transferred out, but sold to somebody who is not a United States company.
Was this a hostile takeover? It sounds like there was competing bids, which means
it's what it looks like. So it looks like
it might have been a hostile takeover. It might not even had anything like U.S. Steel could have done about it,
right,
without forking out tons of other money. Like, and that's something that I've kind of been looking into here as of late, like hostile, like Wall Street takeovers, and how you can go in and buy, what is it, 5% of a company's shares,
right?
And then you can buy another block of like 5% of their shares, and basically you're signaling to Wall Street like, hey, we're coming to take this. And then basically what they do is they buy themselves into the board and then have the board vote on the takeover.
Ah. I mean, that does sound like a hostile takeover because you're slowly working your way in, and then you're able to influence it from the inside.
Slowly,
right?
It just boom, boom, boom,
just kind of
boom.
quick.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't. When I was glancing over the article earlier, it looked like it might have been a hostile takeover. So U.S. Steel might not even been able to do anything about it.
Right. And had no control over it. But again, it is a little nerve wracking. I mean, it's good that they're not taking the jobs out of the U.S., but at the same time with different, that's the other thing, right? Because now that it's owned by Japan, what happens when they're just like, you know what, we're going to take all this infrastructure, all this equipment, all this material, and we're going to take it all the way back to our country?
The thing is I don't know that Japan has the minerals to be able to do so.
Let's hope not.
I don't think so. Japan's not known for steel exports, are they?
I don't think so. Something I could look up, though. But Stu, would also like to hear your take on this, what you're thinking.
Yeah, my take's basically, I don't want to see jobs taken out of the U.S., obviously. I'm never for that. But it is interesting that a Japanese company would own a U.S. steel company. I mean, it doesn't get, really more American than, a steel company in Pennsylvania. I mean, that's just a pretty foundational job in this country. So it's just, you brought up a very important point, I think, Ryan, and that made me kind of got the brain juices flowing a little bit. So I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of what I can say for sure is I don't like a Japanese company owning an American company. So
not even an American company, like one of the American companies.
Right.
That'd be like Standard Oil being sold to the Saudis.
Yeah. So I guess I don't like that because, like you guys said, potentially maybe the jobs will leave. And that's just that would be very disappointing to me. So yeah, I'm just kind of disappointed with this because I want a U.S. steel company owned by Americans and Americans working for that company. Well, that's kind of where I stand on that.
Here's where it gets a little scarier. So decided to look up Japan's exporting. Got this from legacytrade.gov. Japan is the second largest steel exporter in the world. This was back in 2017. In 2018, Japan exported 35.8 million metric tons of steel, a 4% decline from the 37.4 million back in 2017. So Japan's exports represented about 8% of the steel exported globally in 2017. The volume of Japan's 2018 steel exports were just over half of the world's largest exporter, China. In value terms, steel represented just 4.1% of the total amount of goods out of Japan and exported in 2018.
Well, it's a good thing that Japan and China hate each other.
that is a very good thing.
And I can't help to think, how much did the pandemic affect the steel prices and the supply chains?
And so maybe that's why Japan is looking to buy into, again, like the U.S. sector. So if they're the second biggest steel exporter, now they have a whole nother country where they're going to be able to produce this steel and do what they want there. It just gets interesting about what they're going to do with, like, again, the board, who's going to run the company. Are they going to bring it back to Japan, the headquarters? Are they going to leave it there?
They're absolutely going to take the board back to Japan.
Yeah, that's...
but if they leave the jobs here, they bring in new technology that makes the workplace a better condition.
Right.
Is it a bad thing?
Not necessarily.
Like
because Japan's an ally.
If it's foreign owned by an ally and they leave the jobs in America and they improve the job situation, is that necessary?
Right.
In my mind, I don't think so. Like, okay, the profits aren't going to stay in America, but if everything else does, I mean, I don't know how much of the profits get reinvested into America anyway.
Right.
You can obviously probably look at positives that can come out of it, but my standard is I just don't want a foreign country owning an American business.
Yeah.
And I know that probably happens in today. I can't think of any more, but I don't like foreign countries owning our businesses. That's
I mean,
just kind of my standard.
I agree because I've argued that point multiple times. I'm a huge, obviously, proponent of wanting to keep everything here in America, manufacturing, and being. I want to be a larger exporter. You know, I would love for America to keep as much of our manufacturing in the U.S. as we can. So I mean, I see where there's benefits. I see where there's negatives, cons, but I don't know. Ultimately, we'll find out what happens in the long haul. Right? You know, this could be something great for the U.S., but it could also be something tragic in the long haul. Because, like you said, if they're bringing the board out back to Japan, you know, I know that can suck where your leadership isn't at the ready at all times and be able to kind of hit the ground running and go down in there and talk to people. And I mean, I think that's the issue with most of
how many CEOs
companies
are
now.
doing that?
Yeah,
though?
exactly. How many CEOs are doing it now? Basically
how many
none.
board members are doing that?
Yeah.
Like they come out maybe once a year,
if that.
Here's the other thing, though. Here's the thing that I do have to disagree about: the American companies being bought by other countries or other countries' companies.
Right.
We like to believe we're in free market capitalism. While it doesn't feel good, this is a byproduct of free market capitalism.
True.
Like it's a free market. Everything's for sale. Everything has a price. So while, yeah, like I said, it doesn't feel good, it also is kind of one of the defining features of our market, of our freedom market.
Yeah. I guess so. The other interesting point I kind of want to tie in with this is politically wise. So we already are struggling with getting our politicians to have, you know, their pockets not be influenced by but not be influenced by lobbyists. What's to say now that with a foreign entity being able to influence those pockets that things might not get worse from the inside, right? I mean, we're already struggling with that. This might make that worse. But I see exactly what you're saying at the same time. It's a free market. So why not?
Yeah.
Right?
And
so
the other thing is like, can it get worse? Really, truthfully? I mean, I guess it could.
It could, but it's pretty bad right now.
It's only got like what, a 22% approval rating right now?
Yeah, so
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. This Japanese company, you know, are they gonna have influence on our politics? Which, you know, we can do a deep dive, and there's a lot of people with a lot of money and businesses that do have influence on our politics. But I just have to keep that standard with this specific situation here. I don't want this foreign company owning a U.S. business and potentially having any kind of influence on our politics here.
Agreed. So, you know, and
At least it's not China.
I mean, that's the other way I try to look at it, right?
At least it's an ally.
But things can turn in a heartbeat too. So, you know,
not with that one, I don't think.
I don't think so. But you just that's a scary thought.
Because
you just
if we
never
stop
know.
back in Japan, then China moves in quick.
True. It's kind of like with Taiwan and everything going on there. Yeah.
Like if Japan does something to, like, we cast a very big safety net over Japan.
Yeah. So I mean,
and Japanese people are so they're not gonna do something that's gonna off. You know what I mean?
Right. And America is, again, like the largest superpower, so I'd like to think that we're gaining more allies than what we're losing. Just, you know, things to keep on top of.
Now, what I would love to see is somebody in America build a steel company that is comparable.
Something competitive.
Yeah,
right.
Let's introduce some competition in the world, baby.
I like that. I like that idea.
I'd be cool with that, but seems like nowadays it's harder to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's tough, but we'll obviously we'll keep on top of this one. We'll make sure to follow this story and see ultimately what happens. Right? We'll keep up with the steel industry over there in Pennsylvania, and we'll continue to follow it, and we will see the results. Happens. Yeah, see the results. Gotta wait until it all shows itself. So,
why is this U.S. Postal Service like? Why are they showing the postal service? Like, is that the steel mill in the back? Like, what is going on here?
Steel, it works in.
Do you see this? Do you see what I'm talking about? Like,
yeah, I don't know.
the USS.
Maybe
what
a
is
post
that?
office is right beside it.
Yeah, who
I don't
knows?
know.
United Steel something or another, and then like the post office is like right there. It's like we're just America, baby. Well,
worst postal
these guys are
service
Japanese now, but we're still America.
We're still here. I love it. All right, cool. Well, that was a really good topic, really good discussion. Kind of saw how it tied in essentially to our politics and how I like the counter argument of how it's a free open market. So two different sides, two different ways of looking at it.
Also, one other thing before we move on.
Yeah.
Japanese companies traditionally, from what my understanding is, are actually really well ran. They're very efficient. So this might be a really good thing for that company. Who knows?
Sometimes an upper management change isn't a bad thing.
It's true.
So we'll see what happens ultimately. But let's move forward. Got another topic to discuss here. Or, well, two more, of course, but one that is quite interesting that I'm gonna love talking about here.
Aliens.
I would love talking about aliens. Who doesn't love them aliens? But no, we're going to talk a little bit about the homelessness population here in the United States. So the United States has experienced a 12% increase in homelessness, reaching its highest level since the country began using the yearly point-in-time survey in 2007. The total number of homeless people in January was 653,000, the most since the country began using the yearly survey in 2007. The latest estimate indicates that people becoming homeless for the first time were behind much of the increase. A rise in family homelessness ended a downward trend that began in 2012. States and cities are also trying to address the lack of housing, with Oregon lawmakers approving a $200 million housing package earlier this year. Nonprofits are also working to address the issue with Progress Group of veterans who lack housing. The data underscores an urgent need to support proven solutions that help people quickly exit homelessness and prevent homelessness in the first place. The most significant cause behind the problem are the shortage of affordable homes and the high cost of housing. Homelessness among individuals rose nearly 11%, among veterans 7.4%, and among families and with children by 15.5%. That is sad. That is horrible. Over half the homelessness population in the U.S. is in 4 states: California, New York, Florida, and Washington. California's increase was only half the national rate, while New York's increase more than 3 times the national rate. New Hampshire, New Mexico, Colorado also saw significant increases in homelessness. The number of people experiencing homelessness increased in 41 states and the District of Columbia, while decreasing in 9 states. The cost of rental housing soared after the pandemic, leading to the increase of evictions and housing instability. The rapid influx of asylum seekers exacerbated the crisis. New York City's homelessness shelter system has been overwhelmed by waves of international migrants, with over 150,000 migrants in shelters since the summer of 2022. Mayor Eric Adams has pleaded for federal aid to help defray the costs of housing migrants, which he believes will run into billions of dollars over the next few years. The Biden administration has provided over $1 billion in a grant funding to cities and states to fund critical needs for migrants. Some communities have seen improvements, such as Chattanooga, Tennessee, which saw a 49% drop in homelessness from 2022 to the year's count. All right, so, first thing I'm just going to say to kind of address this issue, all the money that we have been spending on war and violence and killing people, or going towards the killing of people, might not be direct, but indirectly. All of that could have been used for our homelessness population, could have been used for many more things here in the United States that could have benefited us drastically. The fact that we're seeing an 11% among individuals, 7.4% for veterans, and families with children, 15.5% increases in homelessness is just absolutely tragic. We are a first world country. This should not be happening.
Where's this happening?
It said the increase was. It said, okay.
I saw New York City.
Over half of the homeless population in the U.S. in the 4 states are California, New York, Florida, and Washington. California's increase was only half the national average, while New York's increase more than 3 times the national average. New Hampshire, New Mexico, and Colorado also saw significant increases in it as well.
Wait. So, California.
Yep.
New York.
Yep.
Washington State.
Yep. And Florida. Yep. And then also New Hampshire, New Mexico, Colorado. While California was only half the national rate, New York was 3 times the national rate.
There you go. Out of those states, how many are Republican controlled?
I don't know, actually. Just one, New Mexico, isn't it?
No, Florida.
Florida, that's right. Is New Mexico not Republican?
No, they went
Interesting.
blue.
And that's a stat that's, I mean, it's a factual stat, right? Where also Chattanooga, Tennessee has seen improvements. Is Tennessee?
Tennessee's a red state.
Is it? So, I mean, I hate to say it like that, but facts are facts, right?
I'm not saying anything. I'm just asking
which
party is in control.
You're showing the facts. You're showing what's truth. That's the truth.
You can make your own. I'm not saying a thing. I just asked a question. I can't help that one party may suck worse than the other. when it comes to this topic.
If anything, you have to ask yourself, what do all those states have in common?
Yeah, and that's the big thing. So what do these states have in common, and what are they doing that's so
Florida.
wrong?
Why do you think Florida's on there?
That's a good question.
What I was literally just talking to myself about that.
Because
using my inner monologue.
Yeah, that inner monologue we talked about.
Because during the pandemic, they're probably the state that closed down the least.
That's probably why the influx of people moving there,
and then the rapid there were a lot of people,
increase in house prices.
I'm also wondering about migrants. So a lot of these are Democrat-controlled states, which could be sanctuary states where they bring in migrants. And then
why isn't Texas on there?
Good question. Well, because they were busing people up to New York
after it got bad
when
enough.
It started getting bad enough, and I think they're still doing it. I don't think they've stopped.
That's kind of hilarious, actually.
I mean, but it's. I mean, so we're seeing where potentially that could be a trend. Yeah, I don't know for sure.
I don't think so, because if that was the case, you would see all the border states.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Arizona and New Mexico are on there.
So
California has just notoriously been bad for
a long while.
I mean,
especially LA. And your governor came out and said, we're cleaning up.
China's coming. Clean it up?
Yeah, we're cleaning up because
sweep them under the rug.
That's what we're doing. You know what? Already touched on that topic a while back, but that was insane to me as well.
But yeah, so hold on. He chastised the governor of Texas for arranging a bus of migrants.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I think Texas would be on that list. And then you got Louisiana. That would be on that list. If that was the case, if it was the migrants,
right? So I mean, it's just overall, this is just wild to me because again, when you just look at the money that we've poured out towards other countries. We could have used
a percentage of that could have been used towards this.
Even a percentage. They're saying the Biden administration has given a $1 billion grant in funding cities and states to fund the critical needs for migrants.
$1 billion between how many states?
Yeah, and for migrants, but we're not worried about the overall U.S. population being like, we need to care about the whole U.S. And even if we are going to bring in migrants, again, I'm okay with immigration. We have to find a way to do it the right way, and then we also have to provide resources towards it. You can't just continuously bring more and more people in and overpopulate us without providing some sort of cash flow towards that.
See, I kind of have a different stance on that. I'm a believer that if you can lead a horse to water,
right,
but you can't make it drink.
Absolutely.
Right? I'm a very firm believer in that. And I'm also, so what I mean by that is you can set these things up for people, but if people don't learn how to take care of themselves, then
True.
It doesn't matter.
True.
Then they fall into a system of habitual or, a habitual cycle of now relying on other people to make sure that they can exist.
Right.
And that's where I have a problem with things. Like, I don't mind helping people out. I don't mind setting up a program to get people back on their feet, or, provide aid for somebody who's, incapacitated and can't, fend for themselves, or
Right.
or potentially mentally incapacitated, to where, there's something going on there. But I don't believe in setting up a program that it just in perpetuity just allows people to rely on this program,
because they'll ultimately take advantage of it.
Oh, for sure. Next
Yeah.
thing you know, it's just like, like a welfare type situation.
Right.
How many people work harder at trying to stay on welfare than actually going out and getting a job?
Yeah.
And not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent. I just said, my belief is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
No, I mean, I do agree with you to a sense there, because, you can't just give handouts, and people have to work to make their living here. 100% agree with that. It's just wild to see the amount of money that we're throwing towards a war versus this. But I'm 100% in agreement with you on that aspect.
Yeah, and see, it's such a weird place, man. The world is such a weird place, because, like, at the same time, you have to look at some of these wars and you got to say, well, we got to stop this from happening, because if this country takes this country,
right,
then it creates problems in the world. And at what point do we just say,
let it happen?
Forget them kids.
Yeah. I like that.
We gotta take care of what we got going over here. But at the same time, there's a lot of times where we step in and stop really bad things from happening.
Right.
And then there's a lot of times where we may cause the really bad things
or just
happening.
look the other way as, things happen. So,
it's like you walk past a back alley, you got two people back there fighting, and you're like, I didn't see anything.
I didn't see it. Yeah, exactly. I'm going this way.
Well,
Stu,
cheeseburgers.
what are your thoughts right there? It's a complicated topic.
Very, very complicated topic, and you have to discuss root causes. Now, the only thing that's really coming to mind is, you guys talked about immigration, which obviously, the past probably 2 years, there's been an uptick in migrants coming across the border. And then another thing that's not addressed, or is not talked about really, is mental health.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's another thing that I think needs to be said. Because, I mean, in reality, say we have like a bunch of homes. There's plenty of homes for all these people to live. And they move in there. How are they gonna fit into society?
Right.
Are they gonna get a job? Are they gonna just, I don't know, where does it go from, I'm all for, I don't want people to be homeless, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But it's like, you spend all this money, and which you alluded to, you'd rather see that money spent on these people that need it in America versus going to war, which I would agree with that. But it's like, where you home these people, and then where does it go from there? You gotta have a plan, and it has to start with the individual. I mean, the individual, they have to take accountability in a sense. I know people, life is hard and people go through struggles. But sometimes people just need to, like, they're gonna have to fight that battle themselves. You can't rely on a government system to come in and try to help you.
Come to save you.
I mean, one day you're gonna have to take that burden upon yourself and fight back against it. And I think that's the mental health aspect. And I know I'm sitting here and it's a lot easier. It's easier to say it than to do it. So I'm not trying to count on anybody's struggles or anything, but very, very complex issue. And I'm very interested to hearing all kinds of points of view, because I mean, this is another issue that we just look at, and it's a mess, and it's been a mess. I mean, all the homelessness we have now, and like you said, Nathan, a first world country, all the homelessness that we have, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I don't really have a solution. Like I said, yeah, you can build more homes, you can make affordable housing for people, but where does it go from there? People they have to learn to thrive in society. They have to thrive in their own lives. They can't just, live for lack of a better term, a meaningless life.
Right.
You've got to find some kind of purpose and find out where you fit in society. I don't know. I'm kind of lost here.
It's not. I mean, the problem is it's not black and white because there's so many underlying issues that you can talk about. You can talk about all the drug issues. You can talk about mental health. You can talk about how there might be a lack of jobs or a lack of experience for said jobs, right? But I mean, there's ultimately you have to, like you said, find a purpose, find something, and be able to contribute to society if you want that little bit of help. Because like Ryan kind of alluded to, you can put the programs out there and you can lead the horse there and you can get them the opportunities. If they're not taking advantage of it, then why are we wasting our time, right? So it's such a complicated, non-black and white issue.
And that's where like bleeding hearts come into play, because there are people who are just like, well, we have to try. It's like, I get it. And for every 10 people you go over and above and beyond for, maybe one of those people does turning their life around and getting back on track.
Right.
But there's still the other 9.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that the other 9 outweigh the 1. If we can get 1 out of 10 people back into society, back, and doing good things with their lives, then that's awesome.
Yeah.
But what do we do with the other 9?
And I do want to touch up on something else, because as we've talked about, I think it was last week and even the week before, I mean, we talk about it all the time. You take that money away from war, okay, and you go into these lands that are uninhabitable. For example, the deserts,
Biodomes.
The deserts, right, where you can't. I mean, you don't have water. You can't grow any plants. You can't. I mean, it's a struggle because you have no way of being able to grow any like essential products there or foods
How
or
do you know
nothing.
there's not water? How deep we got to dig to get to water?
That my point, right? So you take away that money we're spending on war, put it into companies that would be able to expand out there, give them, grants and funds to be able to actually bring their equipment out there, set up shop, and start building domes, dig underwater or underground, whatever we have to do to find a way to make these lands inhabitable instead of killing each other. We need to start working together as human beings and stop looking at it from such a small level.
Because the aliens are coming.
That too. Seriously.
Like, think about it. If we don't start working together as humans, and some existential threat does actually happen, then where are we?
Yep.
And looking at it from a political standpoint, an economic standpoint, you have to create opportunity. You have to create jobs. You have to make things affordable. I mean, all those things are factors into this thing too. You have to make housing affordable. You have to have opportunities in these areas, and hopefully the people take advantage of the opportunity. Now, the ones that don't, I don't know what you do, but you have to have good jobs, good paying jobs. You have to create opportunity, and mental health, like I said earlier, is another big thing. Everybody has their struggles, and I feel like that's a huge factor and why people just can't get over that hump. So, great opportunities, but I do also believe in helping others as well. And I don't know what kind of program we can help with. Maybe have a program and get them housed first and then address things later. But, if you've watched this podcast, our government does not seem to be very efficient at doing these kind of things.
At all.
We like to sit here and talk about it, but then at the end of the day, we think about, these people in Washington, could they really even come up with something good?
Well, because of this. You got all these homeless people right now, right? They don't have a house. What about all the people that are renting?
Right.
Now homeless people get a house, but the people who are, just barely squeaking by, they don't get a house.
Right.
They make just enough money that they squeak by that line. Now they're not homeless,
and they're busting their butts to do that.
but they're busting their butts to do that and build something for themselves.
Yeah.
But they don't get a house.
Right.
So it's like, when I start looking at it from like this multi-sided, multifaceted perspective, it's like, what do we do?
Right. So
Because
the way. No, go ahead.
I think that the main cause of homelessness has got to be mental illness and addiction. I would think that those two things have to be the top causes.
I would almost completely agree.
Because if you look at the labor markets, unemployment is the lowest it's been historically.
Yeah.
For like the last 6 years. So like it's only like at the 3.5% unemployment rate.
Right.
And I think now it's like a 3.9% unemployment rate, or maybe like a 4.1.
It's not high.
But it's like, it's still not high. So that means that the unemployment rate that's out there, there's still a ton of job openings. So like the people that are unemployed right now aren't working because they're not trying to work, or maybe they're not qualified, or whatever the case may be. But the job openings are still out there. That 4% or 3.5% could be covered.
Yeah. And I mean, that's, I guess, kind of like the way I'm looking at it and what I've alluded to earlier. If you take that money, right, and you just stop putting it towards war efforts, and you start looking at these biodomes, you start look at the jobs you'll create.
Be created from that stuff. I see what you're saying.
You're
Dave.
alleviating, like, okay, so imagine you have a pipe, right, and your pipe is bursting at the seams over here. If you alleviate pressure for it, you're gonna have a lot better of a chance to fix it, without all of that pressure being built up on it. Right now, we're experiencing huge homelessness, as we're seeing, where we have a very low. Goodness, I'm blanking here. Thank you. Unemployment rate. But if you take the homelessness and you take anybody who's unemployed and you show them towards a company that would actually be building, you can not only expand the territory in the U.S. and the ability to bring in more migrants, to bring in more people, and to allow for people to find safe haven here in the United States, but we'd also be, again, utilizing these areas that we have. We're not utilizing the whole U.S.
No, not even close.
There's so much that we're not populated at all.
But here's the other thing. There's 685,000 people that are homeless right now, is what this article says, right?
Yes.
685,000.
653, yeah.
653,000, sorry. So it's less than what I thought.
It's same difference, so roughly.
There's 329 million people in the world, or not in the world, I'm sorry, in the country.
Yeah.
So we're talking about less than...
I'd have to do the math myself.
Like less than 0.002%, I think. Am I pretty close?
I'm working on it.
Or maybe it's 0.02%.
Oh, shoot. I did it the wrong way. Hold on.
And this could be way off, but I said root cause earlier because I try to think of root causes, not just, Nate brought up a good analogy with the pipe. You want to fix that hole. You don't want to throw, duct tape on it or a Band-Aid.
Right.
Use whatever analogy you want. But, we're sitting here talking amongst ourselves, and, this is happening in other states. The only thing I can think of is we need to do groundwork and actually go to these places and, talk with these people and just see what their daily lives are like and see what they're dealing with. That's the only way I see to maybe kind of push the needle, is get face to face with them and kind of like meet them where they're at, sort of thing.
I would be willing to bet what Ryan said is correct, though. Most of it's mental health and addiction. Like, seriously.
It has to be.
And it's like 0.0018%. So, yeah, I mean, it's
0.0018?
Yeah, so way below 1%.
What did I say originally? I said 0.02%.
Yeah, there you go. So,
boom, dog,
perfect.
I sniped that.
Sniped it. But yeah,
It's
I mean, it's
Santa Claus is coming to town, baby.
But yeah, I mean, so just
like gangster rapper.
Ultimately, it's like there are solutions. I mean, even just sitting here brainstorming, it's not like we can't come up with obvious solutions, but...
And we're not even smart.
To be like...
I'm an expert. I know what y'all talking about.
To be technologically advanced, you have to get away from the side of violence and start thinking of the side of growth and expansion. And that's just...
And also, too, it starts with truly caring about individuals.
Humanity.
This is one of those subjects where I think that AI is really going to push us over the hump on
I
this
hope.
stuff. Because AI is going to look at the human condition in a way that humans can't look at the human condition.
Right.
And it's going to start figuring things out solutions based on the human condition and being able to look at it from a different perspective. And let's hope that it sides with humans and not, Skynet style. But, I really do think AI is going to really help in categories and subjects like these.
Yeah, no, I agree. So that was a really good discussion. It was a longer topic, but we had a lot to talk about. And again, there's a lot of different solutions. It is.
It's a weird topic.
Yeah, and it's just black. It's not black and white.
I think that the overall thing is the common ground. We like to find the common ground here. Everybody wants these people to have a life of their own and not be homeless, and we want them to thrive in society. So that's the common ground that I hope, if you're honest with yourself, hopefully, you don't want them being on the streets, obviously, and you want them to have a home. But it's about finding the best way that we can house these people and, make them productive people of society. And, I'm all for helping my fellow Americans. So it's just about, what can we do to be effective and actually solve this issue and not just throw a Band-Aid on it.
No, and I agree. And so I got a great comment from Jonathan here on TikTok, and it says, this is from SaveTheChildren.org. Statistics about child hunger in America today are that there are estimated 12 million children struggling with hunger here in America.
That's absolutely be attacking.
And this is, Jonathan said, that's deplorable, and this is the richest country in the world. Again,
yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
It just doesn't make sense. We have the largest
this
GDP.
Ain't no communist community here, boys.
We have the largest GDP in the world, and we can't help the children of all people. Children
Congress
don't deserve
is too busy
this.
spending it on their new warships.
It's absolutely insane. So just something that we got to address and something we got to figure out.
What's your priority?
What's your priority? So let's move forward and talk about
hold on,
Tennessee as soon as you're ready.
And it seems like Congress's priority is keeping those starving children safe. How do you like that hot take, bro?
Wow, that's a hot take.
Wow.
Oh, man.
I don't know why that popped into my head, but
I feel like that's how they would argue it, though.
Bravo.
We're keeping them safe.
Keep those starving children safe.
Yeah.
Not by putting food in their belly, but by advancing the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, because that's where we solve our issues. Love it.
And when those kids grow up, they can join the military-industrial complex.
Then they'll eat for free, right?
Sort of.
Kind of. Not the greatest food in the world, but...
Actually, dude, join the Navy.
Navy,
if
Air
you get
Force.
on one of those aircraft carriers, they eat well.
They have some pretty good food, but I've talked to
I've seen.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people.
If you join the Army, if you join the Marines, God help you.
Yeah, I've talked to some guys who've come out of that and said the food wasn't the greatest thing in the world, but So, okay, moving forward, let's talk about BlackRock a little bit. So, Tennessee Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti has filed a consumer protection lawsuit against BlackRock Incorporated, the world's largest asset manager, who we've talked about before on this podcast. The complaint alleges that BlackRock made false or misleading representations to consumers about the impact of environmental, social, and governance, ESG, considerations on its investment strategies. Skrmetti claims that BlackRock's inconsistent statements have deprived consumers of an informed choice. The lawsuit addresses BlackRock's use of corporate engagement and voting of its shares to achieve climate-related policy goals. BlackRock has joined ESG coalitions like the Net Zero Asset Managers Initiative and Climate Action 100+, which require companies to make specific promises aimed at fighting climate change and achieving specific emissions reduction targets. However, BlackRock's disclosures do not mention these promises, and the lawsuit seeks injunctive relief, civil penalties, and recoupment of the state's cost. This is interesting. So they're talking about trying to help fight climate change and do help with emission reductions, and yet they're not promising these things. So I'm a little lost as to how asset managers can do that. I'll be honest.
Because money rules the world.
Money rules, but I mean, did we not just set like a net target to be zero net carbon by like 2030, 2035?
If you own a business and your business is owned by a big financial institution, that big financial institution says, hey, you want to keep your business?
Of course you do.
Of course you do. Oh, well, then you need to act right. Get your stuff in gear. And if you don't, we will suppress the cost of your company, or the value of your company, so low you can't afford your operating costs anymore. And your whole business goes belly up. And then we sell out.
Wouldn't you just take your finances away from them and find somebody else then to help manage your assets?
Who?
As the company of True.
And then here's the other thing.
That's the scary part. No competition.
Well, no. It's not that. And it's not that they own your company in the sense that you're thinking.
Right.
It's they own your company in the sense that your company went public and they bought the most shares.
That's true. Yeah. Okay. Because you look at who they own right now.
And now they start suppressing the cost of your stock. And it starts pushing the value of your company down. Right? And then when it gets so low, what's going to happen? Your board or your company is going to find the reason that you're losing money, because it's not just you losing money. It's every single employee for that business that's losing money.
So here's something interesting. The Tennessee Attorney General, Jonathan Scrimetti, has filed a consumer protection lawsuit against BlackRock. And now by the end of it, it says, however, BlackRock's disclosure do not mention these promises. The lawsuit seeks injunctive relief, civil penalties, and recoupment of the state's costs. So is this saying that Tennessee is allowing BlackRock to run their assets? Because if it's just for the state and it's not a specific corporation, I'm a little lost on this.
No, because the state can file a class action. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like they can file a class action on behalf of all the businesses that have headquarters in the state.
Okay, that makes more sense. Because majority, I'm sure, of those headquarters are all owned by BlackRock, essentially.
Most
businesses are in general.
I mean, the institutional money is insane. And here's the other thing is like you have Vanguard, you have BlackRock, and then you have Blackstone?
State Street.
State Street. And then Blackstone, I believe, is also another one, isn't it?
Maybe I'll look it up.
Huh?
That's a grill.
No, I'm pretty sure that there is a financial institution called Blackstone.
The Blackstone Group?
Yeah.
Let me see. What do they do?
You have I told you I'm an expert, Stu. But you have these like 4 or 5 major financial institutions called Big Money. I'm coining it. We're going to make it happen. Big money. And Big Money, that's the point I was trying to get to.
Right.
Is once one of those big financial institutions sees that, okay, this other, so Vanguard sees BlackRock suppressing your stock, right? Does Vanguard say, no, we're going to prop that stock up? They say, ooh, BlackRock sees, oh, we're going to get out too.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, your company's spiraling, bro.
And
so that's how they get you to do this ESG stuff, because they say, listen, you can do whatever you want, but if you don't do what we want, you don't get any of our money.
Right.
And I own 10% of your company.
That's a lot.
They own 10% of your company. The other one owns 7.5%, and then the one down from that owns 5.5%.
Yep. You're suppressing almost a quarter. Yeah, probably. Yeah, a quarter or more of their assets.
Yeah.
And that will bankrupt that company basically.
Exactly.
And it looks like Blackstone is actually under $1 trillion of assets under management. So Wow.
Just a small company.
Just small company, you know. But yeah, so I mean, it's to think that these asset managers have that much power is pretty terrifying. I feel like there should have been a way to have not allowed these companies to have bought into these public shares.
There probably was, but they probably bought their way into the public shares.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just because now, like you said, I mean, when you can freeze like a quarter of, or if not
even
more.
Freeze, bro. Just suppress.
Or suppress, yeah.
Start selling it off in swaths.
Damn.
Then watch the value of that thing go.
Yeah, so that's a scary thing to think about, again, when somebody has that much control over your company. So it's nice to see that Tennessee is actually stepping up against BlackRock and that they're going against them.
Hey, there's a bill being pushed by 2 Democratic House of Representatives, representatives right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember who the Democratic guys are, or guys and girls. I don't know if they're guys and girls, but I can't remember who they are. But they are looking to remove institutional money from single family homes.
Interesting.
So, and then I think it would force these major financial institutions to sell off their ownership in these houses, something by 2035 or something like that.
Right, because they shouldn't be in real estate. These companies should not allowed to be owning real estate.
Or if they are in real estate, they shouldn't be able to go after a house until it's been on the market for at least 60, 90 days.
Yeah, I agree. Because it's you got to find a way to be able to get these companies out of being able to own this real estate, though, because we've seen why the real estate market and why the cost of living has skyrocketed. I mean, these corporations, when they can afford that kind of real estate and drive up the property values and kind of set the prices of whatever they want, why won't they? Why won't they make more money?
So here's my thing. Why hasn't anybody challenged the conflict of interest?
Right.
Right? So these companies are going into these communities. Big builders are building communities for these companies. And then these companies own 10% ownership in the big builder.
Right.
Right? And there a conflict of interest in there somewhere?
You would think. And then, so I got Jonathan over here talking about how what we're discussing is essentially unfettered capitalism. So, I mean, he's not wrong. That's where we're at. There is no limitations to what these companies can do. We've talked about not allowing monopolies to run this country, and as long as you don't own more than 33%, but as long as 4 companies
32.9%.
Yeah, 32.9, and then you have a couple of small companies over here, but they don't understand. And then there's talks of price gouging, and these companies working together to make sure that they can keep the pricing model right where they want to. There's so many underlying factors again that are affecting all of this. It's just not black and white.
Wild. Hey, actually, Stu just pulled up this article. Here, I'm gonna read it. It says new bill in Congress would force SFR giants to sell off their portfolios. Democrats in Congress are looking to force institutional investors to not only sell off their amassed collections of single-family homes, but also ban groups like BlackRock, Invitation Homes, American Homes for Rent, and First Key Homes from buying more to convert to rentals. So Senators Jeff Merkley of Oregon and Representative Adam Smith from Washington.
Those were the 2 you were talking about?
Yeah. Introduced a bill titled End Hedge Fund Control of American Homes Act of 2023 that would also impose tax penalties on these firms and would fund down payment assistance for individuals to buy the homes being sold by the major institutions. That sounds like that could be pretty good. I don't know the ins and outs of it. And obviously I'm looking at this from a different kind of perspective, but it would it sounds like it could be a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 680,000 people that are homeless right now. Let's give them some assistance to buy one of these houses that is currently being up for rent.
Absolutely.
Or put caps on how much rent can increase in a 10-year span.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea as well.
It
you
can
have
only
to do
increase
something.
a certain percentage every 10 years.
Yep. You have to do something to be able to start giving some alleviation to the American people, whether it be decreasing the cost of goods, decreasing the cost of living, increasing. But again, you don't want to increase necessarily minimum wage, because if you increase minimum wage, inflation goes up, and then, again, costs will go up. So the best way to do it is to eliminate or decrease the cost, I think, is the best way to do all this. And how you go about it, we can figure that out.
Supply demand, baby.
We got to figure something out.
It's about building.
Yeah.
Literally, we need to open up the supply. And it will not, prices will not come down. There will be no downward pressure on anything. If you look at simple economics, supply demand. If demand is way up here and supply is way down here, then there will be no way to lower the prices. Now, supply is way up here and demand's way down here. Obviously, your prices are going to be really low because there's a surplus, right? Also, man, please, Congress, please start naming your bills something cooler or something that sounds a little bit. End Hedge Fund Control of American Homes Act. That's a mouthful. Just take big money out of houses.
Ooh, so this is interesting. I really appreciate having you here, Jonathan, because you're creating some good discourse. So he asked about remember you Citizens United, when money became protected free speech. That's how this is going to be played, and the investment firms will win. This has no more credibility than the Epstein list, which is funny because we actually talked about that earlier. But so yeah, this is interesting because in January 21st of 2010, the Supreme Court issued a ruling in the Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, overruling an earlier decision by Austin v. Michigan State Chamber of Commerce that allowed prohibitions on independent expenditures by corporations. The court also overruled the part of McConnell versus Federal Election Commission that held the corporations would be banned, that held that corporations could be banned from making electioneering communications. The court upheld that reporting and disclaimer requirements for independent expenditures and electioneering communications. The court's ruling did not affect the ban on corporate contributions. Where was it, though? It's political spending is a form of protected free speech. That's where I was looking for by the First Amendment. So that's interesting. If spending money is a form of free speech for our government,
then why is prostitution illegal?
Yeah, that kind of makes no sense to me.
Why are drugs illegal?
Yeah.
You just said, you were literally just exercising your First Amendment right.
Under the first speech, and the government may not keep corporations or unions from spending money. Okay, I don't know. That's interesting. That's an interesting thought. We'll have to touch up on that sometime. Maybe do a history brief on that. But that's a good.
Wait, is that only for corporations or is that for the everyday U.S. citizen?
That's what I'm trying to figure out here.
Are you voting with your dollars? Are you speaking with your dollars?
I would like to think so. Let's see. Stu, what is your thoughts on this while I'm looking into this?
That it's wild how much these institutions own shares in all these companies. I said earlier, talking about the steel company, that I don't want Japanese companies having an influence on our businesses and even politics. But here is a great example of a financial institution that directly has influence on our businesses. So it's just wild to me, man, that I think we can all agree there's got to be some kind of regulation on these kind of things. I don't know where BlackRock falls under the monopoly laws, but yeah, I don't know a solution to this, but it's just wild to me that BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, just the amount of companies that they have their hands entangled in. It's just, and if you're not familiar with these companies, please do your own research on this, because it's mind blowing.
That it is.
So, okay, what I've got here, this little excerpt might help kind of clear things up. First off, I like what Jonathan said here. Said giving a Congress member 50 grand, that's free speech. I can't speak that good.
That is some proper English right there.
No joke. The Supreme Court found that resolving the question of whether the ban in Section 44(1)(b) specifically applied to the film based on the narrow grounds put forth by Citizens United would have the overall effect of chilling political speech central to the First Amendment. Instead, the court found that in exercise of its judicial responsibility, it was required to consider the facial validity of the act's ban on corporate expenditures and reconsider the continuing effect of the type of speech prohibition which the court previously upheld in Austin. So So yeah, I guess just essentially what I'm getting here is like them spending money is a form of free speech and is protected by the First Amendment. That makes absolutely no sense to me. Under the 14th Amendment, BlackRock is a person under equal protection. Their money is free speech. Is that also true? The 14th Amendment, does it allow protection as an entity,
so.
as a person?
Yeah, I believe so.
That's, oh my goodness. So they've done some pretty extensive digging into getting our political system to side with them, essentially.
Or have they just been lining some pockets for a very, very long time?
Very long time. How deep does this go, right? Because, yeah, and then connect the dots.
It's not connect the dots. It's just follow the money, baby.
Did you say that was under the 14th?
Yeah.
When was that?
Oh my gosh, June 8th of 1866. Ratified 2 years later on July 9th, 1868. I apologize. Interesting. So, yeah, I mean, there's so much digging, I guess, you have to do to be able to go.
And I bet you that started off as a good thing, right, for small businesses, because America was basically all small businesses.
Yeah, because what it says is passed by the Senate on 1866, ratified 1868. The 14th Amendment granted citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, including formerly enslaved people, and provided all citizens with equal protection under the laws extended the provisions of the Bill of Rights in states. The amendment authorized the government to punish states that abridge citizens' right to vote, proportionately reducing their representation in Congress. It banned those engaged in insurrection against the United States from holding any civil, military, or elected official without the approval of 2/3 of the House or Senate. The amendment prohibited former Confederate states from repaying war debts and compensating former slave owners for the emancipation of their enslaved people. Finally, it granted Congress the power to enforce this amendment, a provision that led to the passage of other landmark legislation in the 20th century, including the Civil Rights Act of 64 and Voting Acts of 65. Congress required former Confederate states to ratify the 14th Amendment as a condition of regaining federal representation. So I'm confused as to if there's a way to look up how corporations are considered like an entity or a person, or how entities are considered a person or born or naturalized within the U.S. I'd be interested in that as well. Just do as much digging as we can, because that's what we like to do here. We like to figure everything out.
Here you go. Legislation in the United States. The word person or whoever include corporations, companies, associations, firm partnerships, societies, and joint stock companies, as well as individuals. This federal statute has many consequences. For example, a corporation is allowed to own property and enter contracts.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, because I'm looking here. Let's go here.
This is kind of what I meant earlier about how I said they find loopholes, politicians. Like we can say that they do corrupt things, but they're technically legal. This is kind of what I mean by that. Like, we can look at this and see that these companies obviously do these corrupt things, but they're technically legal and protected under law.
Okay, so here's something, again, from NPR, just because I like to source our articles, and NPR is not a bad one. Are corporations people? The U.S. Supreme Court says they are, at least for some purposes. Here's another part of the article that I kind of like what it says. It says, with the Due to the great industrialization of the United States in the 1800s, however, intensified companies' need to raise money. So from the moment the 14th Amendment was passed in 1868, lawyers for corporations, particularly railroad companies, wanted to use that 14th Amendment guarantee of equal protection to make sure that states didn't unequally treat corporations. So for 100 years, corporations were not giving any constitutional rights of political speech. In fact, quite the contrary. In 1907, following a corporate corruption scandal involving prior presidential campaigns, Congress passed a law banning corporate involvement in federal election campaigns that that wall held firm for about 70 years. The first crack came in the case that involved neither candidate elections nor federal law. In 1978, a sharply divided Supreme Court ruled for the first time that corporations have a First Amendment right to spend money on state ballot initiatives. 1978 is when things started cracking. Wow. This was very informational. Jonathan, thank you so much. I'm working on a car listening to this. Well, thank you. We really appreciate it, because what we like to do here is we like to do our research. We like to bring it to the table. Not that we're doubting you, but we like to verify, and we like to connect the dots, follow the money, do whatever we like to do. So thank you so much for bringing that up.
And
this
also,
is incredible.
thank you, Jonathan, for choosing us to listen to while you work on your car.
No joke. Yeah. Hopefully everything's going all right. I'd love to know the make and model and what you're working on over there, because I love it. Always verify. Thank you.
67 Camaro Yanko.
69 Boss. I love Mustangs. Pony boy, go ahead, say it. I know you want to.
I'm not going
to. Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible. He said always verify. Oh, 05 Land Rover Freelander. I like it. But anyway, so that is our digging, and that is kind of the end of all of this. So to bring it full circle,
that's
essentially,
all, folks.
yeah, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, Blackstone, all these companies, they are considered individuals under the 14th Amendment of the United States. So they are allowed to do what they want with their money. They're allowed to spend it freely, and we have no say. And do you know how hard it is to get an amendment changed?
Very.
So
thankfully.
Thankfully and not thankfully at the same time, right? Because, I mean, I think we can all right here, sitting here, and agree.
No.
No? You think corporations should continue to do this?
No, I don't think that amendments should be any easier to amend.
Well, then we need to start putting some right people in the right place to make sure this gets changed.
If it all of a sudden becomes real easy to amend amendments,
right,
then what's to stop people from amending our Bill of Rights?
Fair enough. I won't disagree with that, but what I will say is we need to start putting the right people in the right places to make sure that we start making the correct changes to our country and what we need, because this is ridiculous.
Yeah, I guess the argument is now, do you believe that corporations are people and have the same rights as people?
Or I'm sorry, yes. So they got it court defined, not necessarily changed. It's been there the whole time, but now the Supreme Court upholds it, the highest law of the land. So that's a good way of putting it.
Basically, what we just need is for the courts to find that that's non-constitutional.
Yes, basically. And that these companies do not have a right to do that. So, interesting thoughts. This was incredible. Jonathan, thank you so much for participating tonight.
Jonathan.
Guys, do you have anything else you all want to touch up with on this subject, or are you all ready to roll out?
Everybody needs to do their own research and look into BlackRock and all these institutions that own so much stock in all these companies around the world, and just see their control and influence that they have every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I'm sorry, I got to bring this up again, but another good point is the Constitution literally means whatever the Supreme Court wants it to mean, because they're the ones who ultimately rule on those decisions. So the scary part about that is
they rule on the interpretation.
On the interpretation of it. So the scary part is,
but
we don't vote those people in. We don't have any say on who's in that Supreme Court. The only person who does is the president.
But here's the thing about that, though. The Supreme Court doesn't just pick a law and say, this is how we feel about this. There has to be a lawsuit that has been brought to a smaller court, that has been a larger court,
and appealed, and
circuit court, district court, and
it works
state
its
Supreme
way
Court,
up.
and it works its way up through, and it doesn't get to the Supreme Court until it's a big deal.
Right.
Like, no one knows, right? The Supreme Court is just the end of the road, and that's going to be ruled on, however they interpret it, or however the two sides make their arguments. Because that's all a court case is it's two people, two lawyers, or two groups of lawyers that are making their case and trying to be more persuasive using statutes and what's the word I'm looking for? Statutes, precedents, things like that.
Right.
To where they feel like their side is correct.
Yeah, and like Jonathan said over here, it's partisan courts. That's the unfortunate part too, is nobody's unbiased. Hopefully these individuals will actually, rule based off of facts and truth compared to just their biased outlook on things. But again, that's just...
You would like to hope and think that the people who are in the justice system wear that blindfold.
You would like to. So... all right, let's get to wrapping it up, because that was incredible, and I have a huge headache. This is a lot. This was a lot to learn tonight, and
I had a head like that,
a lot to go over.
I'd say I was getting ready. Took the words out of my mouth, Stu.
So real quick, everybody, need your all's help.
Take us away.
We need you all to like, share, subscribe, comment, and follow on all of our social medias. Please make sure you do that on these following websites or social media sites: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok.
The Royal Rumble.
Because everybody loves that, and Twitch. Please make sure that you all, again, just follow us on all of that, because ultimately we'll be able to spread our influence. We'll be able to, and here's even this. If you all decide to actually subscribe to our Patreon, we'll take all that money and we'll start building domes out in the deserts ourselves.
Or specifically for a place to escape to when the aliens come.
Exactly, because we need to make sure we're prepared for that. So,
and when that happens, now we're going to get sued.
Also, this is episode 150.
This is episode 150.
In 6 episodes. You know what that means, right?
156.
Yeah. But we do one of these how often, Dave?
Do it once a week.
And then what's 156?
156 divided by 52. Can't do math.
He said he had a headache.
I do have a headache. It's 3 years. 3 years. 3 years of doing this podcast. It's gone through its ups, its downs. It's done nothing but get better.
It's breakups.
And it's breakups. Yeah, it's get back togethers. it has done nothing but
upside down Spider-Man kisses.
it has done nothing but just fluctuate, and it is continuing to get bigger and better as we continue on. So, with that being said, just thank you to everybody who has been here for basically 3 years. We had a lot of supporters, a lot of things going on, and we're only looking to get better every single day. So again, please make sure you all share this with people you love, but also make sure you share this with people that you disagree with, because
I'm looking for a hater.
Yeah.
I just want one hater.
Just
I don't
one
want
hater.
a bunch. I just want one hater.
Because ultimately we
give it
all
to me.
have more in common than what we don't. So please spread this. Please help us influence more people, and please allow us to continue doing what we're doing. Real quick, just want to run through my list. Thank you to all military personnel, active duty and retired, law enforcement, fire and rescue, doctors, nurses, paramedics, hospital staff, farmers, those in American manufacturing. Keep American manufacturing strong. Social work. Those in social work taking care of the U.S. citizens who have mental health issues and just providing what they can for everybody. Last but not least, ethical congressional representatives. The 1% that is out there.
That don't exist.
That don't exist.
I think that our entire episode tonight proves that ethical congressional members do not exist. The whole thing. The whole thing.
Absolutely. So let's hear closing thoughts, gentlemen. Whichever one of you wants to go first. The stare down.
Oh yeah, I guess
it's Ryan's
I pushed
turn
it off
today.
on Stu last night. So I guess I'm gonna just reiterate: ethical congressional members do not exist.
Great closing statement. I love that. Stuart, send us off. Let's hear it.
Yeah. Like Nave said, I want to thank everybody for stopping by and watching, and thank you to Jonathan for the great discourse tonight. That's what
Thank
we
you, sir.
want. We want a podcast that we come and we just talk about what's happening in the world. And, we obviously don't know everything, so we like to hear other points of view and we like to learn. We're using this podcast as a learning tool as well. So we think it's important here that you pay attention to politics and, find common ground in the world. And if, there's somebody that you disagree with on politics with, you can still be the friend. You don't have to fight and create division. Talk to them and try to understand their perspective, because we all come from different walks of life. So learn to hear from somebody else's point of view and be friends at the end of the day. And yeah, man, just build bridges, don't burn them down. And let's come together and let's push the needle and change this country a little bit, because I know, there's a lot going on today, and there's a lot of extremes out there and a lot of fighting happening, and it's just, somebody has to stand up. You the individual has to take a stand today and say, I'm done doing this. We need to stand for what's right. We need to stand for freedom, and we need to make the change. That's why we say this on this podcast. Be the change. So, and it starts with you. So take accountability in your own life and hold your government accountable.
Love it. Jonathan, apologies for the announcements coming in late. We start this 8 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday. Next week, we actually are on a hiatus. We will not be here next week. Just want to shout that out. So 151 will be happening going into the new year. Well, it'll be January 3rd of 2024. So looking forward to being able to see you all there. So just it sucks that our notifications are only giving it to you like a little before the end of the episode. Just make sure you try to find us. I agree, TikTok needs to be better. Look us up on Facebook, YouTube, all those other Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, all those other sites, the Royal Rumble, and Instagram, because we go live on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube, as well as TikTok. So please make sure you follow us on all of those as well. And like I said, 8 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday, except for next week, hiatus. We'll see you all on the 3rd. So with all that being said, thank you all so much for coming to the 150th episode of the Fact Is Podcast. We will see you all on the 3rd for episode 151. Thank you all so much.
Peace.